Okay, great. So I just wanted to start off quickly talking to Patrick about your bisexual activism. And you recently came out of the closet in the last couple of years, right?
About 3 years ago.
Okay, great. And so I just want to throw at you a couple of misconceptions about bisexuals and give you a chance to kind of clear them up. A couple things I know you're interested in talking about. One of them is one of the reasons that Dan Savage gives for doubting people when they claim that they're bisexual is that he sees that, well, they say that they're bisexual, but then you find that like 80% of them wind up with a member of the opposite sex anyway. So somehow he takes that as evidence that yeah, someone they're bisexual, but don't you know they're still going to wind up conforming to some heterosexual ideal, or maybe that's just still more serious to them, something like that. So you had a reply that seemed so obvious I couldn't believe I hadn't thought of it. I hadn't seen it before. What do you say to that?
Trying to remember the exact reply there. The main thing is that we're not defined by our partners. I know that Dan Savage is in the, until very recently, he was in the Bi Now Gay Later school. As far as people who are bi ending up in opposite gender relationships, if you just look at the dating pool, I mean, that's how the odds are going to play. So.
Yeah, very good. Right. So exactly. So the idea is, if you're, the odds of finding another person interested in your, same gender are much smaller because the population is so much more heterosexual. So it's more likely you'll find a heterosexual interested in you than another gay person interested in you if you're bisexual. So doesn't mean you're not really bisexual, right?
Exactly. That's my theory. I don't have any references for that part, but. Just that's how the numbers work. A lot of it is, like I said, people define us by our partners. They think that whoever you're with defines what your orientation is. I've been married to a woman for 20 years. That does not make me straight. Anybody that knows me would know that that doesn't suddenly make me into just this straight guy.
Right. And what were you saying about now you were also talking about the idea of a lot of people thinking that bisexuals would naturally be polyamorous or be more inclined towards that, so they could fulfill both of their sexual orientation interests. What do you have to say about that? Do you know in your experience or from any research you've done, do you know if bisexual people tend to be more polyamorous because of that, or do you think that that they're as likely to be as monogamous as anybody else?
There are both types in the population. One of the things that makes the numbers hard to see is that bisexuals who are in monogamous relationships are invisible. Unless we stand up and say, hey, today is Bi Pride Day, unless we do something to visibly make it obvious to everybody, like hang a flag behind your head, nobody knows. So we're absent from research, we're absent from dialogue, nobody sees us, and that's a huge battle, something that I'm constantly working on. It's probably about 2/3 of my bisexual activism is just going, over here, we're here too, we're queer too, we always have been.
Now, what about, I know you wrote a post recently about the Kinsey scale, and so let me ask you this. Like, we know that there are a lot of people who identify as straight, but when they, go to prison, they might, have sex with members of the same gender, or there might be cultures that there's sort of an understanding. Like, I remember hearing, I don't know if this is accurate, I've never found this again, but I remember in high school a sociology professor telling us about some culture, maybe in Africa, where it was an understanding that during the teen years there would be homosexual sex, and then when you got married, that's when, that would be about heterosexual sex for the sake of having family and children, right? And we also see in the ancient with Plato and these sorts of elitist Greeks who kind of had this view that women were for family and what men were for, kind of mutual love, or I mean, even though there was a power differential there, right? Who could be the passive partner, the active partner, stuff like that. But when we look at variations in cultures, or where there is a lot of sexual fluidity and even different norms about homosexuality and making it more of a norm. Like, I wonder, would there be any credence to say that maybe more of us would be able to be bisexual maybe not all of us, but maybe more of us if we were just socialized differently? Like, what do you think of that view that, like, there's that Kinsey scale, and some people have more of a propensity, or at least even could, if differently socialized, or if in a different circumstance? How do you think that relates to understanding the bisexual identity and how you understand your own identity?
As an identity, the identities that we currently use, LGBT, these are pretty new in human history. It hasn't been that long since they were developed in the first place. Looking at the first couple of cases you were talking about, this is situational homosexuality. It doesn't have anything to do with attraction. If you're in the joint for the next 30 years and you're hooking up with somebody powerful for your protection, this has nothing to do with what you're attracted to. This is just doing what you need to do to survive. Orientation, as it's seen today, is who you have the capacity to have a romantic, sexual, affectional relationship with. Looking at that, the culture that you talked about before, where the young men are expected to gather strength by ingestion. It's not about attraction. It's just that's the way the culture is. In the dark, you can't tell who's kissing you. That doesn't necessarily have anything to do with who and what you're attracted to. Question was long. I lost the last half of it. I hope I've answered it.
No, yeah. So then also your thoughts on kind of the Kinsey scale. I know you wrote a blog post about that.
Kinsey was a nice place to start, but too many people seem to think that he's the last word in research. There's been research since then. There's Fritz Klein, author of The Bisexual Option. There's somebody I'm really excited about, Michael Storms, who has a model that shows same-gender attraction and opposite-gender attraction. Does it as a two-dimensional grid so that they're orthogonal. If it gets away from the whole percentage idea, it's not a case of you're 30% straight and 70% gay. It's you have this level of attraction to people of the same gender, you have this level of attraction to people of another gender. It's actually something that I'd like to work on over the next couple of years, try and expand that beyond just eroticism into romanticism as well. It's possible to have no homoeroticism at all and a certain amount of homoromanticism.
Mm-hmm. So you mean like separating romantic interest from sexual interest then?
Incorporating it into the model.
Yeah, right. So there could be someone who is strongly homoromantic but not strongly homoerotic.
Exactly. One of the things about the Storms model, it's the only model that takes into account asexuality, people who don't have sexual attractions, but they certainly are capable of having romantic attractions. I talked with some people who label themselves as asexual, and they may have a boyfriend, girlfriend, but sex is not a part of their relationship because it's just not something that they have any feeling for. It's not there's anything wrong with them, it's just that's where they are. There's every bell curve has an end.
Very interesting. And so now, but like, if do you mind a slightly personal question then?
Go ahead.
So, like, when you are, as identifying as a monogamous bisexual, right, and you're married, how do you, do you feel like there's a loss of opportunity now for the future for this, for a major part of your sexual side, right? To, like one half of your sexual interest and orientation, you're not going to fulfill. Is that something that's felt as a loss?
My wife Janine, she has brown hair. I like a redhead, but I don't walk around going, "Oh man, I'm prohibited from ever being with another redhead again."
So it's not that important then that there be this kind of sexual or romantic kind of experience. It's not qualitatively different the way you are interested in men than women. That there's something that men could provide that women couldn't for you.
There's there are things I find very attractive about people of my gender and people of other genders than strictly cis female, but that's monogamy. There's no one in the world that's in a relationship that has never cast an eye somewhere else for a brief moment, if only in their mind.
Sure.
So
I'm glad you asked that question, Dan, because that was what I was going to ask that of Patrick as well. Being that you're married, so you're committed to one person, but like in my situation, being married to one woman for 23 years, just like he said, doesn't mean I don't find other women attractive. The difference with me and Patrick, though, is he has a whole another segment of the population that he finds attractive, and it's different than women. So that was my question, is does it make you feel like there's a loss now that you're a committed monogamous, that you're going to lose out on that other option? Because, well, I can't be crass in my comment, but, you know, women, women, woman, 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 it's all woman. I don't have the desire to go woman, man, because that would be a whole nother option. So I was wondering, Patrick, if that was a feeling of loss. But being that I equate it to, we're members of the male species, which then, of course, makes us want to dog every other thing out there. But we are men. We are men because we've decided to make this choice to be committed, and we can recognize that difference.
it's, you know, I don't think anybody is, you know, completely at the mercy of their hormones. The advantage of my marriage with Janine is that we can both imagine we're Bono.
So then you so then what was the impetus then to come out? That's so because that's very, you know, that's really great because you didn't really, you know, have to, as far as, you know, you could have been disguised, right? You could have just gone along letting everyone assume. Now you had been out, well, not out, but you had been sexually active, you know, with men in college, you said?
Not in the last few years.
Yeah, well, no, I'm sorry, not this time in college. I mean, way back in the beginning, you know, when you were younger.
When I met Janine, she was dating the guy I was chasing. And that was the first thing anyone asks you about your relationship is, well, how did you meet? For almost 20 years, I felt I had to lie about that. I felt like I had to lie every day about everything. I was shut off from the queer community because I couldn't go in and present myself as an ally because that would be lying. I'm constitutionally incapable of lying. There's a lot of reasons for it. That big lie put so much stress on my life that when I finally stepped up and came out, it was an enormous weight that was lifted. And one of the reasons that I'm doing so much with the activism now is I'm making up for lost time. I spent 25 years hiding, shut away from my community because I felt that I would be rejected. I felt I'd be rejected by both sides. There's a little bit of that going on in some communities. Where I live right now is pretty good for the most part about it, but if you go beyond the borders, there's a lot of biphobia out there. There are a lot of gay and lesbian people who think I don't exist. So,
any other misconceptions about bisexuals you want to bring up before we move on to other topics?
There's a bunch. I'm blogging about them. It's at the bottom of your screen, and I want to hear from everybody else. It's hi guys.
Okay, great.